Hey, Amy, thanks. I made you co-host in case we have something go with the slides, okay? But we should be good. And we're
Thank you.
recording too.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Come on in. We'll give everybody just another minute or two. Happy last Wednesday of February, right? All right, probably another minute and then we'll get started. How about this weather? Oh my gosh, you should see the kids who are here on campus. It feels like, look at the nods going. So in the house tonight, we have our two assistant principals, Mrs. Brown and Mr. Panganiban. We have one of our counselors, Mrs. Snow. And then there's probably some other teachers in here, but Mrs. McCoy is here, our AVID and 8th grade humanities teachers, and she's gonna give some information and take some questions tonight too. So thank you for everybody for giving your time tonight. I'm Principal Donnelly, and I can't believe this year is, I think now we're almost 2/3 of the way done. We're coming up on in March pretty soon. So we move on along. There's 3 topics on the agenda for tonight, and they are registering for electives. It's that time of year where everybody starts wondering if they've missed a deadline or if they didn't see an email or something like that. March is really when we do a lot of the registration and thinking about for next year. So nobody's behind the curve, we're way ahead of it. Just wanted to go ahead and answer some questions for people and talk about some of the things we're planning for next year for electives. I know there's a lot of other questions that might be about for next year, but you know, for the sake of keeping this within an hour tonight, we'll kind of stick with electives realm. I could probably answer a few math questions pretty easily. So we're going to talk a little bit about electives, social emotional support. We just did a survey, and as results come back from students, you know, we're always looking for new ways to support our kids social emotionally. And hopefully we are reopening for in-person learning for anybody who wants to be in person. Hopefully that's coming very soon. There's a waiver at, going up through the state level. And so I will answer some questions about that at the end for those of you who want to stay for the last part. And then of course, after each of these topics, we'll pause and see if there's any questions that came in through chat. And if I do talk to you, I'd prefer it if you could turn your camera on, at least for that part. It's nice to see who I'm talking with. Same thing we ask our students, cameras on, okay? So let's get started for tonight. Again, those are the topics. And again, this is an open forum. It's not the place to bring up personal information or specific teachers' names, things like that. Certainly if you've got any concerns or suggestions that would be specific to your child or specific class, you can always go ahead and reach out to me. your counselor, the assistant principals. We're here to listen and hopefully take action. So moving on along. So what does it look like for next year for registration process? I believe last year, and Mrs. Snow is here from the counseling department to help answer questions about the process as well. Last year, the kids did it all digitally. Is that correct, Mrs. Snow?
We had just started our course selection process the exact week that we went out for COVID. So some students got started with the paper process, and then some of our students only did digital.
Okay, and so really now we know though kids can do it digitally, so certainly the changes that we've gone through this year is the impetus to make that jump. Just like with parents these last couple of years, we made the jump over to online registration. So students, when they do select their electives, they will put in their first and second choice in the Synergy registration system. And then what happens is Synergy is our data, also where we build our master schedule. So let's say we have an elective band. So band is in there, and in 6th grade, there would be 3 sections of band. Students get attached to band, and then when we shuffle the computer places kids, they'll put the student in one of the band sections that best matches them. So let's say though, there's a conflict in a student's schedule between having band a certain period and another class that they need. They kind of kick the student out, and then we look for those conflicts and we adjust. So the cool thing about building a master schedule is you run these data pieces all the time, and then you find out how many kids aren't making it into their first choice, and allows us to adjust and maybe move which period section is offered and stuff. So it's actually a lot of fun. It takes a lot of time, but building a master schedule and tweaking it is actually a lot of fun. So this is the time coming up in March is when our counselors will start going to classes. They'll explain the process. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, Mrs. Snow?
Yes, so the week of March 8th is when our current students and our incoming 6th grade students, so incoming 6th grade and current 6th and 7th graders will be choosing their electives. So we will be doing a presentation for all students in 6th and 7th grade during the week of March 8th. So teachers have the option of doing the presentation any day during that week. It's okay if your student doesn't see it until Thursday or Friday. Students will be able to enter their elective choices into Synergy starting Friday, March 12th. So it's okay, you have all week to kind of think about your choices. The deadline for submitting their choices won't be until the following week, Friday, March 19th. So they have plenty of time. The counselors will be hosting open question and answer sessions on those 2 Fridays, March 12th and March 19th, I believe from 10 to 11 a.m. That's an asynchronous day, so hopefully that will work in your schedule or your child's schedule. That's a time for you to pop in and ask questions about any of the electives. If you have any questions about the process of entering the courses into Synergy, we can try to help walk you through that as well. We're also available by email, but we're hoping sometimes the face-to-face question and answer would be helpful with walking through Synergy or answering any questions. So all of the information will be coming the week of March 8th, and then entering your courses into Synergy March 12th through the 19th.
And so if the students need help during that time, they would come to one of the open sessions on the Fridays?
Yes.
Okay. And then what if a child for some reason misses everything? Does that mean they don't get an elective next year?
Good question. So if for some reason your child doesn't get their electives in by March 19th at midnight, I think it is, then we will be able to run a report of who didn't select an elective, and we will reach out to you or your student and ask you to tell us your choices. We then have to go in and do it manually. So we prefer if everyone can get their choices in by the 19th. It also helps teach the students how to do this process, because in 8th grade, going forward, they will enter in all of their courses for high school, not just their elective. So it's a good experience for them to start to learn the process. But don't worry, you also don't have to enter your choice by the 9th or the 12th, that very first day. Anyone who enters their choice between March 12th and March 19th at midnight has the same chance of getting their elective choice. Because as Mrs. Donnelly just said, Synergy kind of mixes it all up and gives us your child's schedule. So there's no rush to go in and make your choice on the 12th. you can take all the time you need to think about it and make your selection the following week.
Okay. And those of you who might have sixth graders coming in next year, current fifth graders, or you have friends, we do have a specific evening for our incoming sixth graders. That'll be like going over everything, PE expectations, textbooks, math paths, everything like that. So that sixth grade information night is on March 23rd, when we go over all that information in detail. So just kind of keep that in mind. We're not going to spend a lot of time on incoming sixth grade tonight, but some of you I know might have a child in seventh grade and a fifth grader right now. We are really looking at our electives. CTE is our Career Technical Education Department here in Poway Unified, and they do an amazing job of supporting different electives, certainly at the high schools, a lot more at the middle schools these last few years, and even in elementary, setting up these pathways for students who have interests in different fields to dabble in a little bit in elementary school, a little deeper in middle school, and then in high school really choose some electives that fit what their different interests might be. So this year we started using a program called Zello. It's with an X. So Zello is kind of cool. Probably about half of our sixth graders this year use Zello during their exploratory elective. And it's actually given us some data about what kind of things interest our students here at Mesa Verde. And certainly arts and digital media and stuff like that are really high. But there's other fields that we really want to explore as a school and think of how could we offer that in an exploratory wheel, you know, where it's the kids go to different courses. When you're at a trimester school, you would go to, you know, like 3 different courses in the year, you rotate. A school like Mesa Verde that's quarter semester, you either base it on 4 quarters or 2 semesters. So we're really looking at building up our exploratory program so they can feed in some of these pathways that kids go into in 7th and 8th grade then, and eventually high school. So one example would be like digital media arts. So we added that this year with Mr. Escalona teaching that, and he's been working with Career Technical Education to get more training and working with the high schools to develop the course for the middle school level. And so the kids who really like that and excel at it, when they get to high school, will probably want to go deeper and take those courses, some of which are AP courses. So we're really looking at our electives. We have a lot of great electives already. We have leadership. That's amazing that we have leadership for our 6th graders here. Foreign language, 8th graders can take Spanish 1-2, which is a high school class. We have technology. Mrs. Malo not only teaches art, but she also does a coding class as part of the 7th and 8th grade exploratory. So we have lots of different things going on, but again, really tapping into that resource of career technical education and how they can help identify what our students want and help us identify which teachers are best suited and have the credentials to teach different electives is a pretty cool process we're working on right now. So on the CRF, the course request form, it'll say exploratory. We can't tell you exactly what all the parts are going to be right now, but we're really looking at a mix, a balance. It won't be all technology, it won't be all art. It'll be a mix of things. So when you see exploratory, it should end up being it will end up being a mix. We just can't necessarily identify what the different pieces of exploratory are going to be yet. And of course, they're really meant to offer, again, that sampling for kids to go a little bit deeper as they go further into school. There's a lot of research around electives and how important they are to students, especially in middle school. My favorite statistic, and I can't find the old research to bring it up, but I read it a long time ago, is people's hobbies later in life as adults almost always go back to an elective they had in middle school. So I took woodshop in middle school, and I have actually a full wood shop, and I love doing woodworking and stuff like that. I was also in band. In those days, you could take 2. I'm not very musical, but I did do band all through middle school and high school. And I have an appreciation for great music and love to go to concerts and things. So it doesn't mean you go into it necessarily as your career, but it really opens up these different passion things for us in life. Mrs. Brown, did you take gardening in middle school perchance?
I did not, but I did take like speech and drama, and I love doing that stuff on the side. I just don't have time for it anymore. But
right. All right. So I want to move through, and I know some of you might have some questions, so let me get through different sections, and then we'll pause at the end of, say, the electives section and take some questions that haven't maybe been answered as we go along. So March, again, is the time for choosing electives. And so while I do want to remind everybody that band and orchestra have been virtual for about a year now, actually March 13th, 2020 is when we closed school, but it's been virtual for about a year now. But remember, those programs are going to resume again in person. And I always think of band and orchestra is that, you know, not everybody's going to become a musician. We know that, right? And like I just said, I took band from 6th grade all the way through high school, played a little in college. I'm not a musician by trade, but I have a love of music that came from that. And I think the biggest thing about the music programs is the fact that the students really learn perseverance. Learning an instrument is very difficult. It's very challenging, and they learn that perseverance that comes with it. And they also will learn what it means to be part of a whole working towards something greater. We know we're always dealing with the fact that students are in a world of their own. They're always thinking about themselves. It's just naturally part of how we grow up. But how do we get them to start thinking about the whole and how they impact that whole? Mrs. McCoy's here and she's going to talk about AVID in a minute. But AVID is also about building a community, a classroom community, and working together as a community. So it's not just band and orchestra that does that, but I want to remind you, like, that's one of the real big benefits of those music programs. I always think of the movie Mr. Holland's Opus, not for the fact of the teacher's point of view, but I think of the students who he taught, and when they all come back together at the end to play their musical instruments for him. None of them are famous musicians. One's a congresswoman and one does this. It's that fact of that drove them in those years to be, again, part of something bigger than themselves. So talking about other electives, Mesa Verde does something really cool. We have blended AVID into the humanities. And so what that means is the other schools, if you want to be an AVID, Advancement via Individual Determination elective, you have to give up, say, band and orchestra or another elective you might want to do. But here at Mesa Verde, I think you've done it for several years, right, Amy? Yeah. So for several years, they've blended it in where the students are learning those AVID skills within their humanities class, and it really allows the students to benefit most. So I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. McCoy, because even if you're not thinking about AVID for your child right now, maybe this year, maybe when they go to high school, it's something you want to consider, or you have friends that are always asking, what the heck is AVID? I see AVID everywhere. What is it? So I've invited Mrs. McCoy here to talk to us for a few minutes and answer a few questions about AVID. So I'm going to go ahead and click to the next screen, and that should take care of it for us. So AVID is in our humanities, like I said, and Amy, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
So thank you guys. Yeah, just like Mrs. Donnelly said, I think, I'm trying to remember, but I think we're in the 5th year of the AVID Humanities program. And so we actually transitioned from the elective to this. And so just to give everyone kind of an idea, AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. And so we put it into the humanities with a goal of reaching students who were best for AVID. And really that meant a lot of kids didn't want to give up an elective to take an academic elective and get more work out of it. We also saw a lot of kids struggling because kids were learning in AVID how to take notes, and then teachers had very specific notes they wanted to take for kids to take. So there wasn't a lot of balance across that. And so we decided that the best place to learn to take notes is in the situation where you're taking notes. And so that's what AVID does. It's a class for students who want to be prepared for high school and for college. It teaches essential and fundamental skills that help students. Some of the things it does is study skills or organization. The AVID content is what they call WICR, which is writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. Oftentimes AVID is confused with like an academic success type course. So that's where you see it's not. It's not considered an easier humanities course. We cover the same content and curriculum as the other courses and the other grade level of 8th and 7th grade. It's not for students that are struggling because they haven't put forth a lot of effort or they're not consistently doing their work. We're looking for students that want to be successful and are putting in the effort and maybe need something else. So it could be organization, it could just be extra support, it could just be a group of people. And I think I have one more, I don't remember. Is there another? Sorry. There we go. Okay, so some of the things that we do tutorial request forms with college-age tutors. We do binder checks for organization. We learn and teach the kids not just how to take notes, but how to study from notes. Oftentimes when kids come to my class in Avid for the first year, I ask them specifically, hey, like how many of you can take notes? And they all raise their hand and I say, how many of you study from notes? And like all the hands go down. They miss that disconnect. So we really talk about how it's called the curve of forgetting and how often to go back and when to go back to the notes. We build that family, like Mrs. Donnelly said, through team building activities. Truthfully, like I get to know my Avid students on a different level. I get to know them as kids and as people, not just students. We typically visit a lot of universities. That is a little bit different right now. But in the past, the kids have gone to 4 out of the 5 California universities. We've also done UCLA. And so essentially what it is it's a humanities block. It's the 3-period humanities block, just like all 7th and 8th graders have. 2 language arts period and 1 social studies. And the Avid content and curriculum is built into those classes. So like I said, we take notes in social studies while learning how to properly take notes. A skill that's often sort of overlooked. And we just assume kids know that, and we're very diligent in that. One of the biggest pieces for kids is that they can still have an elective if enrolled in Avid. And we currently have 2 sections in both 7th and 8th grade, which also gives a lot of flexibility with electives. Excuse me. There is a video, we don't necessarily need to show it right now. It's also on the webpage. If you go to the Mesa Verde webpage and you look at under academics, there's a part that says course descriptions in Avid. That gives you a little bit more information. The video is there. The application is also there. So you have all that access. That's my email address. If you have any questions or clarification, I'm happy to answer emails. But yeah, so thank you guys for listening. That is our Avid Humanities program. So hopefully most 6th and 7th graders were presented this information over the last 2 days, so they have an idea. We haven't got to every class yet, so if your student hasn't learned it, it might still be coming. But yeah, so thank you so much for listening, and hopefully it's something that interests your child.
So any questions for Mrs. McCoy about Avid specifically? You can just unmute and. Nope. All right. 2 of my own kids did Avid. One in 8th grade and the other one started in high school. Found it very effective, actually. I have to tell you, my senior in college still, while they didn't like learning Cornell notes, she values it a lot, and it's really helped her a great deal in college. So, all right. Thank you, Mrs. McCoy. Now we all know what advancement via individual determination means. Excellent. Thank you. All right. So turn to my next slide. So not only is March the month for our 6th and 7th graders to think about what electives they want for next year, it's also the time where 8th graders are picking their their freshman year courses, not just electives, but their courses. I know I don't think they take history in 7th grade and 9th grade. I think that's the only real core subject that's not offered. The kids, as a history teacher, that hurts my heart, but a lot of the kids like a break from it, I know, freshman year. So Mrs. Snow, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. So again, March 19th, that's an important day. Basically all 8th graders across PUSD will be watching a presentation on selecting their courses for high school. It's also kind of like a rah-rah pep rally usually for the high school. They show the clubs and activities and the different things that each high school has to offer. So because we're virtual, we're able to do something really cool this year where all of the high schools will have a video to show, and our students will be asked to watch the video of the high school that they think that they're going to be going to. So most of our kids should watch the Westview video. However, if your student is going to Mount Carmel or you're going to another school, you have the opportunity to watch that video. And then I believe that all of the presentations will be available eventually to watch. And again, it's kind of like our presentation. It'll be an introduction to high school, and it'll walk through the course options for high school. So they're choosing all of their courses, not just their electives. So they'll have a couple weeks to be able to make those selections. And then the high schools also have open question and A's. They call it open house, I believe. And there will be a parent night as well for incoming 9th graders. So The high school timeline is a little bit later in March, but we will have information in the Friday Eagle News email that comes out. It's also posted on our website, but the best place to look is the high school that your child will be attending. Look at their website.
Okay. So I want to pause at this point. Let me see, I'm going to try a new button I saw on my thing. So if I pause that, now back to speakers. So any questions about electives, the registration process, timelines? This would be your chance to ask some questions about that. And if something pops up in your head later, that's fine too. But I just wanted to pause while it's fresh in our mind. I did see a couple ideas too. How do we get kids to be able to access as much as they can? That's always a trick in middle school. Do we look at something like a 0 period for some electives so kids can take 2? I don't know. Those are things that I'm open to always exploring. It's getting to the point where we're putting out the electives, but how to offer them at different times. We've got time to work on those kind of things. So any questions? I don't see anything in chat. Mrs. Brown?
Yes, there's a question in chat. How many electives do entering 8th graders get to choose?
Yes, so all of our middle school students, grades 6, 7, and 8 get 1 elective each year, 1 choice each year. And we ask you to choose your alternate choices, but they only have room in their schedule for 1 elective class.
Is there a way they can cycle it through semester to semester, or they have only one for the whole year?
Oh, you mean like more than 1 elective in a year, like half a year and half a year? So if they took exploratory, it's usually a semester of one thing like coding, and the other semester is maybe digital media or something. So it depends on the 2 pieces that we put together for exploratory in 7th and 8th grade. But that way they do get to have 2 halves.
Okay. And one more question. Regarding the list of electives, I think there is a presentation on March 8th, so we will know what are all electives available only during that time.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we always put a caveat out there. We plan for everything, but sometimes based on which teacher can teach or how the schedule all works and things like that, sometimes we can't offer an elective. Like we'll put drama on there, but sometimes it changes and the teacher who is going to teach it moves schools, things like that happen. So we always put a caveat on there, and that's why we ask for students to always give us their 2nd and 3rd choice too. Okay. So we like to know what kids really want. So there might be more choices on there than we can actually offer, because that really tells us, like if I have 100 kids who want drama, and even if the teacher moves, that tells me, oh, I really need to hustle to find a new drama teacher. But let's say it was 15 kids had it as their first choice, then maybe it's not as big a priority to put it on the schedule, because I look at those students' 2nd choices, and if I can give them their 2nd choice, I would do that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Donnelly, there's more questions in the chat.
Sure.
Is there ELA at 7th grade? Who will be the teacher?
Well, we always have English language arts, so it's called our humanities. Humanities here is 2 language arts periods and 1 history class. So yeah, we have that in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
The next question, is there a schedule that will allow 2 electives, block or something?
What was the word?
Block.
Oh, I think that's kind of if you're taking exploratory where you could have 2. You know, right now we don't really have a solution to how do we get kids to have 2 electives. It just doesn't work. It's just how it is. I know some schools, like if a child's in an academic elective like math support, sometimes we'll work it out that they could go to say band 3 days a week and the math support class 2 days a week. So we can flex things like that based on individual students, but we don't build the whole schedule based on that. We are pretty intentional though. Let's say if we have an academic support class like academic success, which would be, you know, study skills and homework help and things, we would generally put that across from a 6th grade band and a 6th grade exploratory, so that students could move in between them. You know, let's say they need that academic support class the first half of the year, and then we're realizing they're being pretty successful, we can move them into another class without blowing up their whole schedule. So we're pretty intentional how we place things on the schedule for that.
The next question, will teachers be assigned for the electives at the time when students choose, understanding that may change?
Well, we look and see how many students say one exploratory, and then we decide how many sections we have to offer, and then I find out which teachers are interested in teaching that, who has the credentials to teach it. So that's kind of how it works. It's like you have to have the right credential, you have to have the right number of students, it has to work in the schedule. So generally, we try to make it work if it's something students want.
The next question is about AVID. Can kids on an IEP do AVID?
Mrs. McCoy, you want to take that one?
We have had students previously with IEPs participate in the AVID Humanities class. It all just depends on the student. Similar to what I told kids today, there is no like one AVID student. So it really just depends on what their need is and how we can either address that in AVID versus, or how we can better support them or support them in addition to. So it does not exclude them from AVID at all.
It's certainly a conversation you'd have with your IEP team to see if they think it's the best choice for them. Yeah. And I've seen lots of different ways over the years. Yeah. Any other questions about electives?
One more.
So should the electives needed to be changed every year from the student's choice, or can they choose the same electives as they chose in the previous year?
Oh, so students can always do band all 3 years, definitely. Students could be in leadership more than 1 year, orchestra more than 1 year, art more than 1 year. Art, if they take it a second year, they do get, it's called advanced art. So that would be for an 8th grader could take advanced art. So we do have some that, like kind of build on each other. And certainly you would go from 6th grade band to, concert band or advanced band, things like that. But yeah, if a student really likes a certain field, they can stay in that more than 1 year, definitely. And some kids do take exploratory all 3 years. They just like that idea of different classes each semester and things and getting to know different topics. So there's a lot of flexibility in that. We're just exploring this year. It's our first year of really looking at the results of that Zello survey, like I told you about, and how that can impact what electives we build for next year. We'll get better at that. And so each year we could use Zello to help us determine what the students' interests are. Although it might show up on a survey like that's their interest, but then when it comes down to the nitty gritty of them choosing an elective, I will tell you a lot of times it has to do with their friend or something they've heard about an elective or something. So the personality survey and the interest survey we give might tell us one thing, and then the students are going with what their gut says or what their friends say. So it's a balance. We gotta take lots of information in for these things.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's two more questions, Ms. Donnelly. Is there a foreign language elective, and does ASB count as an elective?
So there is foreign language. They can take Spanish 1, 2 in 8th grade, and that's a high school course. So if they want their A through G credit, they do have to get a C or higher on that. We don't offer any foreign language at this point in 6th or 7th grade, but I know in the past we've done some exploratory Spanish, culture, some beginning language skills. Mr. Escalona is a talented language teacher. That's something we could always look at putting into a wheel, an exploratory wheel. So that's foreign language here. For next year, I'm not really ready to jump in and find another foreign language to add. I know we have Chinese coming from Adobe Bluffs, and I don't know if any other schools are doing anything other than Spanish at middle school. So there are those different things. We're always looking at Spanish, foreign language, but it's hard to get good foreign language teachers. And at a middle school position, it'd be a part-time position. So those are even more difficult to hire for. The other piece was ASB. ASB is an elective. It's along with leadership ASB. That's what they call it in 7th and 8th grade. It's called leadership in 6th grade. So I was just talking to Mrs. Schatzinger, who's the ASB and leadership teacher today, kind of asking her about the process and stuff. So we're looking at that process for how students could choose to be in that leadership ASB elective. Okay. All right. I'm going to move along to the next topic, because if you still have a question, we might have time at the end to come back to, and you can always email me or the counselor or the APs for specific questions too. So the next one I would say is our next topic. Let me see if I can resume share, if it works. So social emotional support. I did ask Mrs. Snow to come in today. We do have 2.5 counselors. She's not a half a person. She works half the days of the week. Mrs. Hubbard is also here as a part-time counselor. She's with here and Bernardo Heights Middle School. It's hard work for her to be split at 2 schools, but it's to our benefit because we get to steal ideas from Bernardo Heights and they get to steal ideas from us. So Mrs. Snow is going to go over a few of the supports that we're offering currently here at Mesa Verde, and I'm going to turn it over to her.
Hello again. So we know that almost a year into virtual learning, some of our kids are doing great, some of our kids are doing okay, and some of our kids are struggling a bit with the lack of the social connection or some of the activities and hobbies that they're used to participating in. I think adults are realizing that as well. So while our students are still virtual, our counseling department, and that includes our student services specialist, who is Kaya Wright, we're trying to do as many social connection activities and social emotional supports as we can. So we do a Wellness Wednesday, every Wednesday during office hours. That is my colleague, Mrs. Marcotte, and I. She's our other full-time counselor. And that's open to any students. It's an open group every Wednesday during office hours. And students can come in. We usually have a pretty regular group that comes, but every once in a while we have other students that jump in and join too. It's kind of a way to check in with the counselor. We do talk about a different wellness tip or activity each time. Sometimes we practice mindfulness, or we discuss what we're doing for wellness that week. Sometimes we try to play like a little fun game or activity just to keep it interesting, but it's also a way for kids to connect and see each other that way. There's a Friday lunch bunch that Mrs. Wright does every Friday during lunchtime via Zoom, and that usually incorporates some ASB students and other clubs on campus, and that's kind of like games and get to know each other activities, something fun to do during lunchtime. And it's kind of nice now that Fridays are asynchronous. They might not be trying to rush back to class. So if your student needs a little bit of a break during the day or on a Friday, it's a kind of a fun activity to check out. In the month of February, we started posting and offering weekly SEL activities for students. We did this last spring when we went into distance learning, and I think we were kind of not really wanting to get it going at the beginning of the school year because we were hoping we would be back on campus pretty soon and be able to get into classrooms as we normally do to do SEL activities and lessons for students. But every Friday we post an SEL activity in Canvas through our MVMS school counseling page. And starting this Friday, we'll also include it in the Eagle newsletter. And it includes all of the previous week's activities in the current SMORE. So you can go back and look on the previous weeks. So some of the topics we've already addressed are growth mindset, ANTs, which are automatic negative thoughts. So kind of dealing with some anxious thoughts and feelings. And this week is going to be breathing, practicing some breathing for relaxation and stress management. We can do individual check-ins with your students. So during that office hour time or whenever is convenient, we are meeting with students via Zoom. If that's something that your student is interested in, you or your student could reach out to us through email or Canvas message. And then hopefully when we come back to campus, we are always available to meet with students during the school day. We can also provide your family community resources or referrals if you feel like your student might need a higher level of support and need to speak with a therapist or counselor in the community. We have all kinds of wonderful community providers that we can give to you. And we also have other ideas and thoughts and suggestions about maybe what supports your child might need other than regular counseling.
And I have to say, you know, you guys, if you're struggling as a parent with just something, you can go ahead and give a call to your child's counselor, and they're a good person to bounce ideas off of. We have a big bag of tricks here that we can help you dig into and see if something will work. And the biggest advice we ever give to parents is try it for 3 weeks. Anything you try, if you just try it a couple times, it's not going to be effective. You really got to decide you're going to stick to it and try it for 3 weeks, and then it starts to become a habit and it will work. And I did want to go ahead and ask, so It does look like we're reopening soon. We know that the state waiver's out there and information's been coming out. But a lot of our families are going to stay virtual. Are they still going to be able to access these different resources for the families that stay virtual for the remainder of the year?
So the nice thing about some of these activities, or all of these activities, are they're all still going to continue on when we reopen. So we still plan on doing Wellness Wednesdays, so that the students who are home on Wednesdays or who are fully virtual will have access to Wellness Wednesday. I believe the Friday Lunch Bunch will continue. And if your student is virtual for the remainder of the school year, we can still meet with them through Zoom or through a phone call. We can also meet with students on campus if they want to come into campus every once in a while to talk with somebody in person. So we are still hoping to continue to provide these services for all of the students who will remain virtual as well.
Okay. And I know you had a few suggestions you wanted to share.
Sure. So on the MVMS website, the main website, on the counseling page, there is a link to a couple really good resources. There's something called a resource guide for students and parents that we created that has different topics that parents might need help and support with. So it could be, dealing with COVID, dealing with stress and anxiety. There's mindfulness activities. There's a lot of different things you can check out. So our website also has other ideas and resources, so feel free to take a look at that. Sometimes I think right now, as I've been talking with parents this school year, and there's a lot going on with kids, and parents as well are wanting to help and support. And sometimes, I'm a helper as well. And so we kind of rush to try to throw a bunch of things, into the air and see what works. But I've kind of learned this year that it's also good to just be present with your children and kind of maybe just sit back and observe a little bit too. It's okay to just kind of sit in the same room as them, and maybe they're doing their homework, or you're doing something as well. And it's okay to not always be busy and doing a bunch of activities, or always trying to be having a conversation. It's okay to just kind of sit on it a little bit and observe your child's behaviors and see what's going on. It's also good maybe to practice some mindfulness together. Maybe as a family, we do a gratitude reflection at the end of the day, or maybe we do mindfulness in the morning, or mindfulness right when we end the school day. And that's a 3 to 5 minute, video that we watch, and we practice breathing together, something like that. It's also good to, if you're trying to find out maybe how your child is doing or how they're feeling, to ask open-ended questions. If you ask, how was your school day? Fine. What did you learn today? Nothing. We get a one-word answer. So ask more open-ended questions. I know you're working on that Constitution project in social studies. Can you tell me what you're working on? Or what did what's your topic that you're working on? Ask questions that aren't related to school too. Our school day is long for the kids right now. We're definitely learning that even though it's virtual, it is a long day for them. So mix it up a little bit and talk about things that they're interested in, topics that are of interest to them, and things that aren't school related. So you can also do a different kind of check-in, ask them, like, what is your weather check today? So tell me how you're doing in a form of the weather. Are you sunny? Are you partly sunny? Are you partly cloudy? Are you rainy? Just to kind of mix it up a little bit. And there are other resources and ideas out there for how to do check-ins, but those are just some kind of little things. Mrs. Donnelly said, try it for a couple of weeks and see how it goes. If there are things that you think your child needs more support with, then definitely reach out to your child's counselor, and we can talk a little bit more about what's going on and what your concerns are and what else we might need to try.
Mrs. Snow, real quick, what's a gratitude journal?
So there's lots of gratitude activities out there. In the spring, we had shared like a gratitude scavenger hunt. So it's finding things around your house, find something that makes me happy, find something that is a good memory. But there's also some sheets and pages out there where you can do a reflection at the end of the day. I actually have a couple things that I can share. I can either try to find that here in a minute, or I can share it elsewhere. But what makes you happy? What are you grateful for? There's science behind gratitude and science behind mindfulness, that if you can just take a couple minutes at the end of the day and share what you're grateful for and have that reflection of, you know, not just what went well today, but what am I grateful for? What am I thankful for? What are the people or things in my life that I'm really relying on right now? That there's science that can, you know, give you endorphins and dopamine in your brain that does actually make you happier. So gratitude is good for you, we like to say.
All right. So any questions for Mrs. Snow? Something that she's touched on that you might have a question about? And again, you could reach out personally, of course, later. Anything in the chat?
There are questions, but not related to this.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mrs. Snow. All right. So the third topic for tonight is reopening Mesa Verde. We're hoping for very good news. We've had dates before. Some of you are remaining virtual, and if you wanted to, this part won't be terribly long, but if you wanted to hop out, you could, or if you're planning on sending your children back, you're more than welcome to ask questions and everything. A lot of this information I've given out before, so I don't want to go over it in minutia. I just want to, and I told myself before tonight I wasn't going to do a slideshow, and then I go and I'm like, oh, I got to have a slideshow. So anyway, I pulled slides. I've showed these before. I just want you to know, like, part of the whole idea of the social, emotional, and everything is we are planning to bring our students back and welcome them. Mrs. Brown is working with our web leaders, Mrs. Feist and Mrs. Schatzinger. So there will be an orientation for sixth graders who are coming back on campus this spring. We went ahead and decided it's going to be March 12th. So even if the reopening gets delayed, we're just going to stick with March 12th, and we're hoping then that leads very soon into reopening, and the kids will be on campus. The first day, all the kids come back. There'll be lots of signage, people out there to help kids find their way around. We're even planning something for our 7th and 8th graders who are new to Mesa Verde this year. They will go ahead and have an event. We're really thinking sometime that week of March 8th. We would do something after school that they could come to campus and check out the campus and meet some ASB people, know where the library is, find the 7th and 8th grade wings, all those kind of things. So we are planning for all that. Also this summer, I've been talking to PTA all year long. We're gonna do some, in addition to the fabulous web activities that we do for our 6th graders, which is welcome everybody, we will do something for our 7th graders this summer because they didn't get that web orientation that they missed out on. We'll do something fun for them. We're also planning to start an annual new family orientation program. I did it at Creekside. It was very successful. Parents and their kids would come a few days or a week before school started. They get to meet the office staff. We'd have a PowerPoint slideshow, but then they'd go out on a campus tour, and we started doing it with videos and QR codes scattered all around campus with different ASB and PTA and foundation parents out and about to answer questions around the campus. So we are going to start that this year. I'm very excited. That's a new program we're bringing on because really it's got to be hard enough moving schools as a middle schooler, and then to find out, well, I just start school tomorrow. So we are also creating a series of videos. Those would be part of that orientation, but then people could access that anytime during the year. We're also looking at expanding our new student buddy type of program where they get a guide for the day to help them get introduced around campus and everything. So those are things that are on the docket for next year, but we're also thinking about our kids when they come back this spring. How can we help them feel welcome? We're making a bunch of informative videos that all students will have access to before we reopen. So those will even be ready before the 12th of March. We're going to have those posted probably end of next week. Those will be right on the website, so any students can look at them so they get a feel for how is lunch going to run, how do I stand in line to get screened, what's PE going to look like, how do I get my lunch and where do I sit, how to access the counselors. So we're making a series of videos, short little videos that kids can access. Front office, when should I be in the front office? How do I go to the front office? And so that they can see the faces of the people up here too. What does lunch look like when we reopen? It'll be just one lunch, because remember, we've got only probably about 350 kids on campus when we reopen. The Monday, Tuesday group is about 350 to 375, and the Wednesday, Thursday group is just a slight bit smaller, maybe 20 smaller than that. So we know we can handle that at one lunch. Lunch continues to be free for the rest of the year. And then we'll set up a secondary library in the little theater for those kids who like to read and kind of do some homework during lunch. So we're thinking about the kids. That's all we think about, I have to tell you, is how we're going to make this a positive experience for our kids. And the office hours comes up a lot because right now office hours is that last hour of the day from 2:05 to 3 o'clock. So the students who come to campus, like if your last name is Adams and you come on Monday, Tuesday, they would leave campus at 2:05 and go home, and they could access office hours when they get home. But basically, remember, they have access to their teacher throughout the day to get that extra support. So we are reserving office hours. Kids wouldn't be in the classrooms during office hours. They could access it virtually from home. And certainly the virtual students could access it all 4 days. So that's one thing people ask a lot of questions about. How about PE? Our PE teachers are working together. The kids wouldn't be in the locker rooms. It's just too crowded and too not enough space, not enough ventilation. So they'll come in their PE clothes on the day they have PE. And remember, they'll only have PE in person 1 day a week. So that's the day they would come in their PE clothes. And that's because they're either coming Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, Thursday. So what else about PE? Only 2 groups of kids. We know we can space them out. PE has been working on this basically since about October, planning for this. They'll sanitize they have a electrostatic sprayer. They'll sanitize equipment in between. We'll minimize shared equipment. Kids have to wear masks, so send a separate mask on PE day because they are going to be working out. PE is 75 minutes long, so kids are going to be getting their sweat on. All 4 PE teachers are really working as a team because what we've figured out is we are going to divvy the kids up. So if your teacher is let's say Mr. Morrison, but he might be teaching the virtual class for period 2, and Mr. McKercher might be teaching the in-person kids. But they're going to all coordinate and make sure that their activities are all aligned and stuff like that. So they would still have their primary PE teacher, but they're going to work as a team so that we can divvy the kids up into virtual and in-person when we reopen. So really, I know I just breezed through that. We're still following all the guidelines, the spacing, masks, hand washing, all those things. We feel very confident. We've had anywhere from, we're running probably, Mr. Panganini, what number did you give me the other day? Like about 150, 180 students a day right now?
Yes, just about.
We've really been increasing our number of students on campus. That's between our special education programs, our kids who might just come 1 day a week to get some extra support. Some kids come 4 days a week. So we really have been increasing those numbers, and we feel like our safety protocols are working. Kids are staying, we're not closing classrooms. You can check the district website and we're not getting cases. So we're doing a good job here. It doesn't mean it's always going to be perfect. If you're sending your kids, I have to tell you, they're really good in the classroom, and the minute they get in the hallways, they want to be by their friends. But they remember too, they stay in pretty small groups of friends. So if we did have to contact trace, we feel pretty confident that I could go to Mr. Panganiban and say, all right, who'd you eat lunch with? And who are you hanging out with in the hallways? And we can contact trace that way. So that's really my thing about the reopening. Again, we will have some more information as we get closer. I'll send out another PowerPoint with updated things, but we have been over this information quite a few times, I know. I've been really good about if parents are asking for different days because they, for work schedules or siblings and things like that, I've made a lot of changes around that. We'll send out one last thing of your schedule for Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, Thursday, or we still have you for all virtual, and we should be good to go. The minute we get the word from the state to open, we are ready to go. I feel extremely confident with that. And I can see Mrs. Brown over there nodding her head, sorry, not shaking her head. We feel good about reopening. So I'm going to open it up, just take the last 10 minutes or so here tonight for questions that didn't get answered.
Yeah, I have some questions from the chat.
I bet you do. Okay, ready?
Will people going back to school be separated into 2 groups?
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay, and then I
those groups
believe
of kids are considered really a cohort then, okay? Yeah.
I think this is in reference to PE, your comment regarding PE, but it is unless they have PE period 4 or 5, correct?
Oh,
then they
then
have
they're
PE
never
both on
correct.
campus days, correct?
Yeah. So if they have PE period 4 or 5, those kids will get PE for about 40 minutes both days. Yeah, that is true.
And then how will lunch work? Do the kids take off the masks?
So they'll sit at tables, they'll leave their masks on until they sit and eat. And again, we'll try as much as we can for spacing, but that's why they generally eat kids eat with the same kids almost all the time. So we feel confident with contact tracing and things like that. So that is a fact that kids will have their masks off. Certainly we would have enough spacing that if a student really is uncomfortable being around anybody when they're eating, we would have that opportunity for kids to spread out. We would allow for that. We'd have some extra room, let kids spread out. We're already planning on bringing in more tables and things like that.
And just for clarification, there is no target for reopening just yet, but it should be soon.
We really feel like it's going to be soon. The waiver, it's working its way through the county and the state. I'm not sure if they approve it and say open tomorrow, or if they approve it and say open in a week. We just decided when we were doing the orientation work, we just decided let's just do our date. I feel 95% confident that we're opening sometime right in the near future. Hopefully in the month of March. So why not, let's get our kids orientation done. Let's get it on the calendar, stop bumping it. And so that's why you'll see me putting dates out there. It's just because I'd rather get that stuff done now. And so when we get the word to reopen, we don't have to scramble really quickly and put together our orientation stuff for students.
A couple of elective questions.
Sure.
If a kid does not make it into ASB, will the second choice become the elective?
Yep, absolutely.
And then if a student is currently in math 6-7, I believe it says, will it continue this kind of math class next year? And can AVID work together with this kind of math class?
So the math pathways that the district has, you go math 6, 7, 7, 8, integrated, right? And so that's just a continuum. Let's say a student's though in the compacted math 6, 7 this year, and maybe your child's struggling, or you feel like we want to slow it down. We always have that option. We don't skip anymore. District has really done a lot of research and tracking of data for that. We don't skip grades of math anymore because math is such a spiral. But if your child is struggling, you want them to maybe slow down and get off the compacted track, or even repeat the compacted track. You can do those things. But the other thing is, once you're on the math track, you're usually following that math track through. I'm not sure if that was quite the question. And then how does that interact with AVID? So AVID is a lot of note taking and things like that, but the AVID teachers, the kids get a lot of actual support in math and doing their math homework from these college tutors. And the cool thing about AVID, and I know this because my own kids were in it and I was an AVID teacher myself, AVID is really neat in the sense that the kids don't get to the tutors are already scheduled. The kids know that the tutors are going to be there these 2 days. The kids don't get to just come in and tell the tutor, I don't get it. I have no idea what's going on. I can't do it. They actually have to formulate their questions ahead of time. I think it's called a TFR or something like that. So they actually have to use this form to create their questions about their math support that they need. So that way, when they sit down with the tutor can look at it very quickly and then target the help. And a lot of times what we found is the kids are going through this process, they're solving it on their own, right? Like they're like, oh, never mind, I get it. So it's a neat process with that. So AVID and math go together. It might not be their AVID teacher teaching them math, but there's a coordination between all those programs.
There is one question about, will school open after school class after the reopening?
So I think after school classes would be, who asked that question? You can certainly give me some clarification on that. Are we talking about like after school clubs and things? We are thinking about how we can do those on campus, yes.
Stella, is it Stella? Yeah.
Stella, are you in the house?
Yes, I mean the after school like a club class is it before like in the Mesa Verde has this kind of activity, like after class you can stay at school?
Okay, so there's ACES program, I know, and then you're probably thinking like maybe where there's some math counts or math Olympiads and things like that, or maybe some extra help classes.
I think it's ACES.
Which one was
So
it?
ACES.
So ACEs right now, I was just talking to Mrs. Baker. She's the ACEs, the lead here, and they're trying to figure out how to do ACEs and how many students they could serve. It's kind of hard because the kids would only be able to come to ACEs on the 2 days they come to campus, but she is getting ready to send out some information about ACEs. But we're also, let us get reopened for a couple weeks and then we can see how it's going, and then we can always try to bring on some more clubs or figure out a way that kids can still access library space. It's always really right now is we got to kind of get a feel for the spacing, right? Like what does 350 kids really look like on campus, and how can we manage library time or other activities?
Okay.
There's a question about how many teachers will stay virtual even if the kids are back up to campus.
So it's not a very large number here right now. So we do have teachers who will stay virtual, and we have a lot of our students who are coming currently for extra help, they do that virtual instruction, right? So their teachers are all teaching virtually now, but the students who come to campus for extra help are zooming into those classes. And Mrs. Snow, I think she's gone now, but we've done a lot of surveying and tracking of student success, and the students actually are very successful in that model. So I already have 1, 2, 3 long-term subs that have been doing that program for me that will continue and to support those students whose teachers remain virtual. Right now, it's not a huge number of teachers. I think it's probably about 10 teachers across the board will be virtual. That could move a little bit, you know, as people get vaccinated and stuff, and it might start higher, a little higher and then lower as people get vaccinated and stuff like that. So we're in a really good spot. That's what I told you. The minute they tell us we could reopen, I've got my staff all lined up to support the kids. ACEs has been wonderful. ACEs staff have been supporting students. I have 3 substitutes supporting students. We actually have a noon duty who's really good at supporting students too during the virtual instruction. So we're in a good spot. We're ready to go.
And not just because it's 8 o'clock, but I think we covered all the questions.
Not just because it's 8 o'clock?
Yeah.
Well, it's let me go ahead and stop share. I should have done that anyway, but let me see what my last slide is. There you go. It's a thank you. Really, your questions help us clarify things that we have to do a better job of getting information about in our newsletters and things like that. So the questions that you asked tonight really do help us out, and I appreciate that. There's no bad questions ever. And I know this is that time of year when everybody starts getting nervous about next year's courses and everything, but this school has a well-oiled machine ready to go for registration. It's just a matter of tweaking it a little bit. You got a new principal. I'm going to do things a little different, of course, but Mr. Panganiban, Mrs. Brown, the counselors, we've been working together this whole year already together. So we're ready to go, and we're excited to bring some new things to students and certainly thinking about things differently. Okay. All right, anything else? All right, where's my gavel? All right, this was recorded, so I shall post it in case you care to watch it again. But I will go ahead and post it on the website along with the PowerPoint, or what do we call it now? Google Slides. So I appreciate you guys a lot. Have a fabulous Wednesday, and let's hope we reopen soon. And for those of you that are staying virtual for the end of the year, we've got stuff planned for those kids too, as far as an orientation kind of fun team building activities. So it's not just about the kids who are coming back to campus. I promise you that. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.